This is episode 46 of Oluswole, podcast on a budget. I'm excited to welcome our guest. He's a soccer player, real estate guru, all-around sports enthusiast. Alex, what's good?
I'm doing well. How are you, Timmy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Happy to be back.
Yeah. Because people don't know, we shot this episode about a year ago, but I wasn't able to get around to editing. So we talked a lot about sports, the NBA, and stuff like that, but the predictions he made are just invalid now because it's like everything that has been predicted has happened. So unfortunately, you have to write it back.
I mean, that's the curse with making a bunch of predictions and timely sports podcasts. Like some of this, you and I had this conversation. Like some of the stuff that we talked about still like makes sense, but the bulk of the stuff we talked about obviously was about the playoffs last year, and that has came and went, and now the the new playoffs are in full swing. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're hailing out of Gainesville, Florida. both Penn seniors. I met you. I don't know how I met you exactly, but I think just through like mutual friends, right?
I think so. I think the first time we met was maybe sophomore gala.
Gala, yeah.
But I didn't know much about you at that point, and then I can't remember. I think after that it was just hanging out at Hamco, really. But yeah, we've known each other for a little while now.
Yeah, hanging out at the crib, But I want to get into sports because obviously it's a big, great Jason Tatum, sure. Repping the Celtics, unfortunately. Maybe this year in the finals we'll see. Every time the Celtics crash out in the playoffs, I think I was telling you about this. I love seeing those like off-brand Jason Tatums who like do those Celtics like. And it's like this is what Jason Tatum was like.
It's really funny, even as a Celtics fan and a big Tatum fan. I'm not a huge fan, obviously, of the amount of hate that he gets, but the Instagrams that really hate the Celtics are really funny. Like the Mickey Mouse theme with the off-brand Jason Tatum has been really popular in the past few months, and it's really funny. Like, we're talking to you. What day is today? The 14th. So it's the second round right now, and the Celtics are up 3-1 as we speak. But the two games that we've lost so far in the playoffs, like social media has a field day. Because in both games, I can't remember. I think I think Tatum had a good game in the game we lost to Miami, but the game we lost to Cleveland, so far, who knows? Maybe Cleveland will win another one, but I don't think Tatum had a good game, and social media had a field day. And the same thing you're talking about, like the entire roster. The other one that's really popular is Tatum and Brown with the fat filter on. That one is brutal. So like I try to stay off social media, NBA social media after the Celtics lose, because it's just some of the takes are both. Some of them are accurate, most of them are brutal, but those ones are really funny.
Yeah. No, that's definitely for real. Like NBA Twitter, I don't have Twitter, but because I have Instagram, NBA Twitter kind of like filters into my feed.
Absolutely.
I just love seeing. It's like one of the funniest things. Like I love the meme collections out there through different moments. Like especially when it ties in with stuff that pundits say. So like after the Lakers won their 2020 championship, they're like, "Oh, this is the Cuban Zirconia championship, Mickey Mouse ring, da da da." Yeah. I don't believe that personally.
No, I mean,
but I just think it's funny.
Yeah. And ever since then, like, I don't think it was a thing beforehand. Maybe I'm wrong, but like the term Mickey Mouse and then insert whatever it actually is has become so popular since then. Like Mickey Mouse run, Mickey Mouse championship, Mickey Mouse team, Mickey Mouse player, like all of it, just to make fun of somebody, usually in jest. But it's again that's such a stupid thing because they won the championship. Like, and I'm a Celtics fan, and like the Lakers won the championship, like fair and square. But people just use it as a way to hate on LeBron. But It is very funny. To be fair, all the memes.
Yeah, no, for real. Speaking about Braun, that reminded me of. I mean, this is May 14, 2024, so draft still hasn't happened, but seeing Bronny at the combine, I saw his little stats. Like he had like a 40-inch vertical, smaller than I expected from what I heard. I mean, from what I could hear.
Yeah, he was listed at without shoes. He was listed at 6 foot 1.5 inches.
Yeah.
So yeah, it surprised me as well. I thought he was 6'3",
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, but what do you think? What do you think about Bronny? What are your thoughts?
So it's difficult. We were just talking about NBA social media. I think NBA social media is a very dark place because it's a bunch of idiots talking about sports.
Yeah.
But something like we were just talking about, some of it is hilarious. But for the most part, the takes are really bad. Like a lot of people think Bronny is just like popular just because of his dad, and obviously that helps. But like the explanation that I've seen that makes a lot of sense is like, no, he's not ready to be like a real NBA player right now. But he wouldn't have been he was either a 4-star or 5-star, I can't remember. He wouldn't have been that highly rated if he wasn't actually that good. Like the people who are making those ratings are putting their careers on the line to make those ratings. Like a lot of now this draft class is considered a very weak draft class, which I think is like a dangerous precedent because the last 2 times that in memory that there was a poor draft class, like the worst, really bad number 1 overall pick was Anthony Edwards.
Yeah,
like at this point that seems like an awful take.
Yeah.
And the worst draft class ever, which was I can't remember, it's like 2013 or something like that. Giannis and Gobert were in that draft class. So like, just because there's not going to be another, more than likely there's not going to be another Victor Wembanyama or LeBron James in this draft class. That doesn't mean there's not going to be very, very good NBA players. There's a great NBA player in every single draft class. Yeah. So like, I say all that to say, I think for me, it would make the most sense for Bronny to do another year in college. He was very much on track to be a first-round draft pick going into college, but then the cardiac arrest that he went through, like he had to sit out for 5 months, and then he played in a very dysfunctional USC team. And I'm not like the best college analyst. I'm much more into the NBA these days. But the few games of Bronny that I did watch, he looked all right. I do think he could get drafted in the second round, and I think he could, do a little bit of the probably like the Gary Payton II route, where like now I'm pretty sure he went undrafted, but like a long time in the like the end of the bench or G League kind of thing, and then eventually become a solid NBA player. I do think he can be a solid NBA player. Okay. We had this conversation actually the last time I was on the podcast. I think the most important thing in the NBA these days is to be able to play both ways, and he's a 3-and-D wing, which is like one of the most important positions in the NBA. So one of the most important archetypes. So all that to say, it's no guarantee, but I do think like the people that are saying he's only going to get drafted because of his dad. Yeah. That's ridiculous. Like he did not have a good season for USC, but what is he supposed to do? He came off of a cardiac arrest. He didn't get to have any of his summer training, or he joined mid-season as a freshman. Like, absolutely, I think he should go back to college for another year, but I do think he could be. If he gets drafted, it's not BS. Is basically, the way I think about it.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you on that. Like people see the names, like it's LeBron James, technically, right? So they assume it's just all hype. I see people hating on him in the comments. Obviously, social media is a toxic place. I'm like, this guy's just trying to. Yeah, he's been blessed with resources and genetics, but like, he's trying to. He didn't have to be an NBA player,
right?
And he still had to be an NBA player. He had to be really good at playing basketball. Yeah, he's putting the work because he got invited to the combine, 4-star, I believe. At Sierra Canyon.
Yeah, he was in the McDonald's All-American game. Yeah. I can't remember if he was a 4 or 5-star. I honestly
think
can't.
4. I think so.
I honestly can't remember. But what you were just saying, like his real name was LeBron James Jr. I remember a meme from when he was in like middle school. Like he didn't want to wear 23 or 6. Do you remember this?
I saw this.
Yeah. So like he didn't want to wear number 23 or 6 because, quote, he didn't want to be like in his dad's shadow. And like the joke was like coming in at whatever number he is, number 0, LeBron James Jr. And like, who's that? Like,
I wonder who that is.
yeah, obviously we know who that is. But speaking of LeBron's kids, I think Bryce has a chance to be pretty good as well. He's tall, but I haven't heard much about him as a college prospect. He's a couple years younger, but all that to say, I think Bronny benefits for a few reasons. Like he's definitely getting the benefit of the doubt because LeBron James is his dad. Yeah, it's a weaker draft class, and like on top of that, true or not, LeBron has said he wants to play with his son. He's walked that back a little bit, like saying I want to share the court with Bronny, not necessarily be on the same team. But I am positive somebody will draft him. Probably mid to late second round, but still.
No, for sure. Like, and the point you said about weak draft class, I also thought about this independently. I've never spoken to anyone about it, so it's funny that you have the exact same opinion. It's like people say, oh, this is a weak draft class because no standout person like Zion or LeBron. But like that 2020 draft you mentioned, Anthony Edwards, multiple-time All-Star.
LaMelo Ball,
All-Star. Yeah. Who else? Tyrese Halliburton was in that draft?
Yep, he was in that class. I think Maxey might have been in that class too.
I think so.
So, and he was taken in like the 21st pick or something like that. There were a bunch of good players in that draft class. Was Desmond Bane in that draft class? A bunch of really good players. And the talking point that I remember is because people pretty much always had a positive opinion of LaMelo Ball. Like people thought he was kind of soft, but people were definitely unsure about Anthony Edwards. And we're talking to you. We're talking a couple days after he put up 44 on like 60% shooting. The T-Wolves lost, and that series is very interesting. But he's been incredible in the playoffs so far. He's on track to be a very, very good player. It's crazy to think like. I'm 22. I turned 23 relatively soon. He's 22. It's crazy to think about. Like I think about this guy as like just an absolutely incredible athlete, and like he's more of a peer than than an idol. That's a whole separate conversation. But he is well on his way.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how young we are. Like I'm 21. And it's just like these guys are roughly my age. Playing NBA basketball, doing this. I'm like, damn, I'm just going to school. We're in class. Yeah,
it makes me feel a little bit like a failure. Like, man, like for example, you mentioned that I play a lot of soccer, and I played a ton of soccer growing up, and I was actually just playing soccer like 20 minutes ago. Lamine Yamal for Barcelona, he's 16. Like, I was excited to just, be learning how to drive at 16. Like the fact that this guy is playing for, an all-time great club in Barcelona at 16 years old. It's just crazy to think about. I was watching the Man City Tottenham game a couple hours ago, and Tottenham at the end of the game subbed in a 16-year-old, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm 6 years older than him. It's crazy to think about. But some of these athletes are incredible.
Wait, who won that game?
City, 2-0. Not quite. They go into the final day 2 points up on Arsenal, and I think a goal back on goal differential. But if City wins the game, they guarantee. They're playing West Ham on the last day. Arsenal's playing Everton, my team, on the last day. We don't have anything to play for, so I have a feeling Arsenal's going to win that game. But I all signs point to City winning the league, but it's not a guarantee.
Yeah,
it's not a guarantee.
Man, if Arsenal fans, City has to win, even though they've been running a monopoly on the league for the last few years. City has to win because as a Chelsea fan, if I hear Arsenal win the league, I'm never gonna hear about it.
I didn't know you were a Chelsea fan.
I'm a Chelsea fan. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, Cedric too. But. Yeah, I typically don't have any problem with Chelsea. Y'all beat up on us this year, which was pretty gross. That was I got Cedric. Let me know. I was not happy, but I tend not to like Man City because they the way they're run, oil money and that, but. They if they win, they'll have four-peated as champions of England, which has never been done, and they'll have won 6 of 7, which is insane. That's just a ridiculous run.
That's wild.
I am of the firm opinion that the Premier League is the best league in the world, but it has not been competitive recently. Each of the bulk of the races. Have come down to like the very last day or whatever. Like the year that Liverpool had 100 points and didn't win the league. That's just crazy.
That's wild.
It's because City won it, obviously. But the stranglehold City has had is just incredible. That team is ridiculous.
I personally don't. This is kind of a controversial opinion, but I don't mind the fact that City built their team in a very inorganic way. Because they have the funds, like, in football, or soccer, I say football, but there's no salary cap, right? So if you're backed by the richest owners and they have the money necessary to buy the best players, revamp the academy, revamp training facilities, and attract high-end names, as a fan, I want that.
Yeah, my problem is how the owners of City made their money. That's a separate political conversation, but... you have to say at the end of the day, yes, they have an embarrassment of riches in terms of a funding standpoint, but like a bunch of the other top teams have spent just as much as them, and with Pep Guardiola's guidance and coaching, like the players that they've bought, they've spent an insane amount of money. Like they played Tottenham today, and Jack Grealish, an €100 million player, was sitting on the bench the entire game. But it's not because he's not good. It's because their entire team is filled with every single, like, it's hard off the top of my head for me to think of a player that's been bought in the Pep Guardiola reign that has not panned out. Like, they're all, like, yes, their team is, like, their starting lineup is worth $1 billion, literally. Yeah. And their bench is worth something close to that. So, like, their squad is incredibly expensive, but, like, Man United has spent an insane amount of money. Chelsea has spent an insane amount of money. Liverpool has been very Liverpool and City are probably the two examples of teams that have been very efficient with their money. Liverpool's net spend is incredibly low relative to the other big clubs. But at the end of the day, City, to your point, has bought players that have all been very expensive, but very much worth it. Their team is, I can't stand their owners, but the players on their team are just beautiful players. Just incredible. The football that they play is, probably the best in the world. And that's not a hot take.
Yeah, it's not a hot take.
They won the Champions League last year. They're not going to win it this year, but. They've done very well.
Yeah, for sure. And especially, this is kind of pivoting away from City, but you spoke about the Champions League, and it reminded me of Bayern Munich and how they are no longer in the Champions League anymore. And it's like, wow. Like, Harry Kane still hasn't won a trophy. And Bayern Munich typically run a monopoly over the Bundesliga. And I think Dortmund won it this year.
No, Leverkusen.
Leverkusen.
Leverkusen. It's insane. Like the memes about that are also really funny. Like, people say like PSG has a monopoly over Liga in France, and like people are saying like if Harry Kane were theoretically to go to PSG, like bet the house on Marseille or something, somebody random. It's like, yeah, it's incredible. Frankly, I feel bad for the guy because he is a world-class player. And Bayern Munich absolutely choked the game against Madrid. It was brutal.
Yeah.
I don't. When I was watching the game, like neither of those teams are my team. So like I was just watching it as a neutral fan. But like, God, to blow that lead, like Neuer made an absolutely terrible error to let the first goal in. The second goal was just a good goal by Madrid, but like 85th minute up 1-0, and Tuchel subs out Kane and I can't remember, maybe Musiala as well.
Yeah.
Like, all of Bayern's best attacking options to try to play a defensive strategy, and then they get scored on twice. And now they're trying to score with subs for attacking players. It was just brutal. But yeah, it is what it is at this point. It was an incredible comeback again by Madrid.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that the fact that Kane is still yet to win a trophy is insane.
It's wild. Like, I hope he gets it at some point.
Me too.
Just for the sake of his career. But yeah, that's unfortunate. He's scoring all those goals at that rate, to be England's all-time top goal scorer, everything like that, all these accolades, and like nothing to show for it.
Yeah. I that's a separate conversation. I think in football, it's a little bit easier to have this like stance of like in basketball and in American football, we talk a lot about like ring culture being toxic. I personally think like I think like it is maybe a little bit reductive ring culture, but at the same time, like you play the game to win championships. So like, yes, you should judge people based on how many championships they win. And I think it's an even more fair judgment in soccer because there's so many different chances to win trophies every year, whether that be the Euros, the World Cup, all the different domestic cups, as well as the regular the Premier League table, different stuff like that. There's so many chances to win trophies each year. So yes, Kane should have won a trophy at this point at some point in his career, but he at the end of the day, it's 11 on 11. Like it's not in the Euro. Okay, it's 2024. Euro 2020 was it, or maybe it was 2016? I can't remember which year that England got to the final. Okay, so it was the 20.
I know Portugal won in 2016, but
yeah, you're right. So I'm thinking of the 2018 World Cup and the 2020 Euros. The 2018 World Cup, England, Harry Kane should have squared the ball to Raheem Sterling to score to beat Croatia in the semis, and then in 2020, England lost to Italy in the final. I personally was happy about that. My family's Italian, but but I say that to say, except for like that exact example, there really hasn't been an example where Kane was at fault for his team not winning. Like he is an incredible player, and like he's just gotten unlucky. I feel like he played for Tottenham forever, and that team is renowned for not being good enough. But and absolutely he should have won a trophy at Bayern. But like again, it's 11 on 11 soccer. So like. And who knew that Leverkusen was going to go on such an insane run this year? But yeah, just unlucky. And I have to think he's going to win a trophy by the end of his career. But really suck.
Might need a ring chase like Shaq, Celtic Shaq or something.
Well, I mean, he is ring chasing. He went to Bayern Munich of all teams. Like absolute. Bayern Munich, it was like the first time in 10 years or something like that they hadn't won a trophy. It's just crazy. Brutal. But at the end of the day, he's still going to be an all-time great player, regardless of whether or not he wins a trophy. But like for his own sake, I hope he wins one.
speaking of football, and this kind of leads into basketball a bit, but obviously in major leagues, in football in major leagues, you have the first few slots going to Champions League qualification, 1 or 2 slots going towards Europa League, and then at the bottom you have relegation. Do you think, I've been seeing some talk about this, right? In the NBA, bottom teams are kind of incentivized to stay bad so they can get higher draft picks. So you have a higher chance of getting the number 1 pick in drafting Wemby if you're a really poor team. So there are no real consequences for having a really bad season in the NBA outside of getting a high draft pick, which is a positive consequence. So do you feel like there should be some sort of relegation metric implemented in the NBA to incentivize winning? Or is that possible?
So I don't think it makes sense for the NBA. If we're talking another American sport, I think there absolutely should be relegation for Major League Soccer. And that, that feeds into, an entirely different conversation because that is purely money driven. There were the top 10 most valuable soccer clubs in the world. A bunch of them are MLS teams now, even though MLS teams are nowhere near as good as they've gotten a lot better. And the MLS has invested an insane amount of money in young talent. But the MLS teams are super valuable because there's no for the owners there's no risk of relegation, so it's a very safe bet, and so they have no incentive to add a relegation system. But for me, what I care about is the advancement of American soccer, and above all else, the U.S. men's national team. And I think for the MLS to become more competitive and for American soccer to become world class, I think they would need to have a relegation system. But for the NBA, I don't think it makes sense because there isn't, unlike in soccer, there's not an abundance of lower league teams. There's the NBA, there's the G League, and then there's semi-pro leagues and the Drew League and different stuff like that. But there's no abundance of other teams to create a relegation system. So, and on top of that, they did change the draft lottery odds a few years ago to make it a little bit less like a race to the bottom. For example, Sunday was the draft lottery drawing, and now, this is a crazy outlier, but the Atlanta Hawks, who had the 10th worst odds to get the first overall pick, they had a 3% chance of getting the first overall pick, got the first overall pick. And when you hear that, people were not, we were talking about earlier, people are not that excited about this draft because, there's no Wemby in this draft. At least, from a projection standpoint, I was listening to the Low Post earlier, and he had Jonathan Givony on, who's the ESPN draft expert, and he was saying this kid Alex Sarr, he's French, he's been playing in the Australian league, he has a super high ceiling, he has a very low floor, but he could end up being he was comparing him to Chet Porzingis, everybody wants somebody like that. He's 7'1" and can shoot the ball decently well, so I think the benefit of the NBA is that by having the low teams get very high draft picks, it creates a chance for small market teams maybe Victor Wembanyama would choose to sign with the Spurs because they have a history, but if it was done anybody could sign, if the draft was done not as the worst teams get the highest picks, it could end up being very pooled in terms of the talent. That still is the case on some level. Different organizations are still better than other ones at maximizing talent. But I think for the NBA, because there's only 30 teams, because there's only a G League, and because there's a salary cap, they really want to try to make it. And they just added, the new CBA that came out was officially started this year. They're trying to make it even more restrictive, to make it even more competitive. So as fans of specific teams. Like, of course, I would prefer, as a Celtics fan with a super expensive team now, the timing, the fact that they introduced the second apron, like, that's pretty brutal. We're going to get penalized for creating a really good team because it's too expensive. Most of the players on our team we drafted or traded for, none of them were. I think Al Horford was the only free agent signing on our team. Like, all of it was organically created, but because of the second apron, we're probably, like, at the very most, we'll have to disband the team in a couple years. Like, I say all that to say, no, I don't think it makes sense for the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more of an ideal world kind of thing. An ideal world, I would love for the NBA to have relegation as a concept. But like you said, there's no second division for the NBA as of right now. It's just the NBA or the G League. There's a pretty big disparity in talent level between G League players and NBA players. So it wouldn't even be competitive,
I do think inevitably, if for some reason they wanted to introduce that, screw it. We'll start I'm from Gainesville. We'll start the Gainesville NBA team, and we start in like the 4th division or whatever. And inevitably, more teams would be created to join more leagues, but the NBA and the NFL and the NHL and the other, MLB, they all have monopolies in the United States, which is technically that's antitrust law stuff. Like technically they have an exception allowed by the government, but I do think like if that were started, more teams would be created because like at the end of the day, the G League teams are all owned by NBA teams, so it's basically like farm teams they're farm teams for the main NBA teams, but who knows, maybe they could be split off and become their own thing. I don't know, but it would certainly be interesting. Like there's no way the Pistons from this year deserve to be in the NBA. But I don't know, it would be a very interesting change, but I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah, if only, man. I mean, it'd just be cool seeing the Pistons playing in the NBA 2 or something like that instead of the regular NBA.
Oh man, Detroit suffers enough already. Oh my god, that would be brutal. Man. And like the thing is with relegation is that what often happens is like all the best players leave. Yeah. And so then it becomes even more concentrated. Like, can you imagine if the only good players for the Pistons, Cade Cunningham was like, man, I really want to join the Lakers or the Celtics or the Heat, and pick a really good team and have like, can you imagine if Cade Cunningham was like the 7th man for the Celtics? Like that would be ridiculous. So like, there are like, the downside of relegation is that it would become even more concentrated with the really big teams. You mentioned something earlier that we were talking about soccer not having a salary cap. It's interesting. There's a chance they're going to add a salary cap to the Premier League in 25-26, which as an Everton fan, like, it'd be awesome. we might actually have a chance to compete. Yeah. But I don't think it's going to be anything like the hard cap in the NFL or like the de facto hard cap in the NBA. But
definitely a soft cap.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. It would be nice if we could make it a little bit more competitive.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's a very American concept, like a salary cap. It'd be very interesting to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be pretty interesting. They have in English football they do have financial, and I think it's a
FFP.
Yeah, financial fair play. I think it might be. I know for sure it's in England. I think it's a general European concept, but like that is supposed to like limit teams. But like what it really is like the basics is like you can spend as much as you make based on revenue. So even then, like of course Manchester United is going to bring in more revenue than pick a rant like West Ham. Yeah. Like, that's not, It does, and even then, like, Manchester City, we were just talking about how great they are. They have 115 charges against them for financial fair play, and those are still being processed.
Yeah.
So like, at the end of the day, it doesn't really limit much. But yeah, no, it would be awesome if they could make it a little bit more competitive. But
I don't fully know the ins and outs of financial fair play.
I don't fully understand it either, because I've heard, as an Everton fan, we had 2 separate financial fair play charges brought against us this year, and it was because we're building a new stadium, and there are cost overruns. Like you mentioned earlier, I'm in real estate. Like, of course there are cost overruns in a construction project. That's what happens. Construction is always more expensive than it's projected to be, always. So like the fact that we got 10 points taken off of us, and we're not very good. We're not a very good team.
Yeah.
And so we had 10 points taken off of us. We managed to appeal that down to 6, but then they added another 2 for a separate financial fair play charge. Again, because we're building a stadium, and it's more expensive than we thought it was going to be. So like the fact that they went through those charges very quickly, and Man City, whose insane amount of charges have not been processed, and those were brought up a few years ago.
Yeah.
I've heard that it was because Man City actually found a loophole as opposed to actually breaking the rules. Who knows how true that is?
Yeah.
But and like you can't really penalize somebody for finding a loophole.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see, like, if they were given the same treatment that Everton is, like, relatively speaking, 2 charges that ended up being 8 points, 115 charges,
Yeah. It's like
roughly 4 points a charge. Like,
one, League Two.
that would be hilarious if De Bruyne was playing in League Two all of a sudden.
Gosh,
And it's not unprecedented.
Yeah.
Like that kind of drop would be unprecedented. But like, for example, Juventus in Italy, they had to go down to the second division for a year, in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So like, it's not unprecedented for a dominant team to be relegated by force because they broke the rules. So I don't think I in my heart of hearts, I do not believe Man City is going to get in trouble, but I think they should. But who knows?
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see if they ever get in trouble. But who knows?
Yeah, like you said, it just seems like people get hit with financial fair play charges. They're like, oh, okay. It's like, oh.
Yeah, they get a transfer ban for, like Chelsea got a financial fair play transfer ban, and back in, I want to say it was 2020 or something like that. Yeah, you would know all about that.
Signings,
So like, preventing a team from adding new signings is especially in January, like that's a real penalty. It's not a big penalty, especially because like Chelsea then discovered, hey, we've got all this great young talent. It'll be very interesting. I read an article in The Athletic a couple months ago talking about the charges that Man City has against them, and it's basically, my takeaway was like, it's so convoluted and confusing, it's going to take forever for it to go through the I think they call it the Court of Arbitration of Sport or whatever. It might be a couple years or more before they finally come to any sort of conclusion on what to do with Man City. But in the meantime, they're going to keep winning.
Yeah, no, for real, getting those chips.
Brutal. But
such is life.
Here we are.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, man. I appreciate your time.
No problem.
Yeah, Oluswole on all platforms. Make sure you check it out. YouTube, like and subscribe, all that. Thank you guys for listening. Yeah, peace.
Go Celtics.
I don't know about that.